It's your boy Concert Viz 34 coming to you today, May 22nd, 2017, and I'm going to be talking about the recent Linkin Park record that just came out. So if you're not a fan of Linkin Park, this is definitely not the video for you. I know some people have checked me out for other genres and other bands that I have reviewed or had video of, but if you don't like Linkin Park or you never have liked them, definitely, punt past and kick this video. I'm not offended at all if you don't watch it. But I did want to talk about the new album, One More Light, that just came out this past Friday. And I want to talk about some of the concerns I have for the future of the band's touring, and how it's isolating a lot of its fans. But as far as One More Light, it's a 35-minute and 19-second album. That is a pro of it. It's very quick. I have said in other videos as well that I like quick albums. Maybe not 35 minutes, preferably I like a 45-minute album. That's probably the best balance of time for me. But for this album not being as good as previous albums, in my opinion, at least it gets in and it gets out, and they didn't extend the horror for much longer. Now, the pros, I'll talk about those first, and then I'll talk about the cons after that. But the first one, as I just mentioned, it's very quick. The other thing I like about this album is the rapping from Mike Shinoda, who is known to be the MC of the group. And Good Goodbye, you got Pusha T and Stormzy spitting along with Mike, and I think that's a highlight of the album. I That never gets old to me is Mike Shinoda rapping. He always delivers, and the thing about him is he doesn't have to necessarily swear or talk about, I'm pulling up with the Draco, or really get street with it. He can spit clean very well, and that's hard to do. A lot of people sound corny spitting clean, but Mike has always, with Linkin Park and even with Fort Minor, he's always been able to deliver. So that's a highlight of that. And the other highlight of the album is One More Light. It is, just like most of the album, very pop based, but it has the fullest sound as far as having electric guitar that you can hear in it, that doesn't sound like it's a forced EDM or electronic song. That's what I like about One More Light. So the highlights, Mike spitting, and One More Light, the song. And actually, One More Light was a tribute to Chris Cornell. When they played this past Thursday at the Jimmy Kimmel show, they had it streamed on Facebook Live because they did like a mini concert. Not all of it made it to the Jimmy Kimmel show on air on TV, but I was able to watch the full stream of their concert, and it was just a cool tribute to Chris, who I saw with the band Project Revolution Tour 2008, my first major concert. So that the death of Chris Cornell really impacted the band because they literally toured with this guy. Chester Bennington credits songs like Limo Wreck from Soundgarden, which Chris Cornell was the vocalist and frontman of, to influencing him personally. So those are the pros. The cons to me is the electronic elements of this album are pushed way too far, that you don't get a lot of actual rock and roll and heavy sound. So there is a lot of intense moments in this album. It's still mostly pop, but it just seems too fake and synthetic. It doesn't feel authentic. And compared to other albums that Linkin Park has dropped with a lot more electronic elements, it just doesn't feel as full. It feels very empty. And that's the con. And really, the other thing, too, is, to me, this was supposed to be a pop album for Linkin Park, but it just, the execution on some songs just didn't, to me, get there. They didn't connect. Example of this, track number 7, Sorry for Now. Mike Shinoda wrote this. He's the only one credited as being a writer. It just sounds too weak. Now Mike can sing. He's sang on many songs with Linkin Park, but it's vocally it sounds weak, and lyrically I just don't feel it as much. I will say I know the band's getting a lot of flack for this album from their day one fans, and I'm someone who, when Hybrid Theory came out, I was a fan of them. Not right away. I didn't know who they were until the album came out, but that about 3 or 4 months after Hybrid Theory came out, I started listening to Linkin Park heavily. But it's just, to me, the the lyrics just aren't there. But I understand that these people, as far as Chester Bennington, the main vocalist, and Mike Shinoda, who raps and does vocals, they're talking about their life now, which is the best it's ever been. They have kids that are growing up. I believe, I don't know if they're married, but they have families now. So that's why I think that this album is very upbeat and positive, even though there's intense moments. But again, they're limited and they sound artificial or synthetic. Uh, it just doesn't connect like the previous music that they've had, even the last couple albums they've had. Not just to say, oh, I want their old stuff. Like, no, the last couple albums were much better than this. Overall, I'll give the album a 5 out of 10. That's being nice and very generous. The reason I give it a little bit higher than what I personally think is this was supposed to be a pop album. And for a pop album, they kind of did what they did. It reminds me a little bit of Owl City and some other insert generic pop artists on Top 40 radio here. There's some elements of that that are on these songs. So as a pop album, I give it a 5 out of 10. Overall, the pros are very limited. Like I said, the rapping and One More Light. The cons are just feels empty, artificial, and things like that. Now, the biggest thing that we see from this promotional run of the album, and now that it's out, One More Light was released May 19th. The band really said some things that could really turn off fans, and they have the right to defend their art and defend what they want to do. So I always have believed, even if I don't like an album like One More Light, that ultimately the band decides what they want to do with their music. It's not for us. We can give our opinions, but they are the ones that are the musicians, and they can do whatever they want with their art. But at the same time, they can face backlash and should be aware that you're going to face backlash when there's comments in the media from Mike Shinoda or Chester Bennington saying, like, dude, we're not at Hybrid Theory anymore. We don't like that. This is a very common battle between bands as they grow and evolve. The issue, I think, is not that, obviously, yes, I think what fans have to realize is you're not going to get another Hybrid Theory from the band, period. That was a time in their life, and you have your whole life to write your first album. You're not going to get that. So some fans aren't realistic, but at the same time, fans are just saying, and this is where the band needs to be more realistic, is when you go from The Hunting Party, which came out in 2014, that was very aggressive, and it brought back some older elements, not as good as their original first two albums, Meteor or Hybrid Theory, respectively. It's not as good as that stuff, but it was aggressive. It was energetic. And the band has realized when you go from that to like a straight up pop album, you're going to get backlash. That doesn't seem like a natural progression. And previous moves from the band have seemed to be more organic in change. And if we go back, we'll start at Hybrid Theory, and I'll just kind of break down being a fan. And really, I listened to some of these Linkin Park albums non-stop. In my childhood, especially Hybrid Theory and Meteor. But they start off a Hybrid Theory, and it gives you the nu metal and rap combination that had been tried for years before Linkin Park, but Linkin Park really had a better formula than previous attempts as far as a single band doing both. Hybrid Theory to Meteor, you see a little bit of a change. Parts of it are aggressive, but some parts get a little more softer. You have songs like Breaking the Habit, which are very introspective, talking about drug addiction. So you see a little bit of a slight change, but it still was on point. And then you go to Minutes to Midnight, and a lot of Day One fans and a lot of metal-only fans that didn't mind the rap fell off the wagon at Minutes to Midnight. But again, you see a adjustment. Songs like Breaking the Habit allude to Shadow of the Day, Hands Held High. So you see change and growth, but the change isn't drastic. It's not just turning a switch and going pop, heavy to pop. Like like we saw with this last change from Hunting Party to One More Light. And Minutes to Midnight, you go to A Thousand Suns. A Thousand Suns, a lot more conceptual, as far as it was a concept album of this story. A lot more digital and electronic, which at the time was just 2010. You start seeing the Skrillexes and all those other guys that I really don't listen to, but they started blowing. Electronic music started making a comeback around this 2010 period, at least in the mainstream, and this house music. So the Thousand Suns has a change from Minutes to Midnight, where it's a lot more electronic. There's still guitar and things like that, but there's a lot more electronic. But again, the Thousand Suns, as a runner, I back in the day I used to jog to songs from A Thousand Suns, or just jog through the entire thing when I was doing some long distance runs, because A Thousand Suns still feels like Linkin Park. Some people didn't like it. It is what it is. You're gonna always lose day one fans when you grow and evolve. But again, it wasn't that much of a change. Living Things, same thing. Living Things gives you a little more of the old school Hybrid Theory feel, but it still has electronic elements of A Thousand Suns, but it's different. But again, it wasn't a drastic change. Living Things to the Hunting Party, Hunting Party was a lot more aggressive, but again, not much of a change. But the first six albums had diversity and had different things, but you had a signature Linkin Park sound. The issue with One More Light is it doesn't have that. It doesn't have much of the Linkin Park sound outside of hearing Chester's signatures, like singing kind of persona, and hearing Mike rap a little bit. You don't really have a Linkin Park signature. It sounds like a pop album. Like Linkin Park does pop. That's really what the album should be called. But the thing is, this is going to translate to touring, and this is where the band. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this tour they are doing, because I'm on the fence. I can go, and there's a couple different shows within. If you go like a 3-hour range of where I live, I can hit up the City Field show with Blink-182 if I wanted to. I could hit up Mohegan Sun. I think there's another show in Mansfield, Mass. I think they're hitting up Mansfield. So there's a bunch of different shows I could go to, but to me, I don't want to have to sit through. I've seen Linkin Park twice, in 2008, and was the Project Revolution, and I saw them in, I believe it was 2012, when they were Living Things had just came out. Saw them in August of 2012, I believe. But I don't really want to see them again if I have to go through 5 or 6 songs from One More Light just to get to the oldies. And that's the issue that they're going to have with this tour. Is there's fans like me that I've seen social media posts on my personal Facebook feed and seen other comments that are like, oh, Linkin Park's back. It's my childhood. I don't listen to them like I used to, but I kind of want to check them out. But I don't want to sit through all these songs. And that's the issue they're going to have with this tour. Now, Linkin Park has a huge international following. They can get 100,000 people in Brazil. They can go to the UK and get 100,000 people to show up to places. They can even go to other parts of Europe and get 70, 80,000. Like, let's just say they had they could host something that big. They would get fans to show up. But here in the States, a lot of us grew up with the original sound, the Hybrid Theory sound. And as the band evolved, they got more internationals. Minutes to Midnight and some of the more electronic stuff past Minutes to Midnight got a more international base. But people here in the States, like me, I like to rap and I like a little bit of hard rock. So that's why I love the combination of both of those in the same band. The fans like that, they may not show up to this One More Light tour as frequently as other tours. And you're seeing with the Blink-182 Linkin Park combo in City Field, Linkin Park, there's still tons of seats available. Now, it is a 40,000 plus seat venue. When they bring out the pits and things like that, they have a field GA and then like a pit in the front. But to have Linkin Park, Wu-Tang, Blink-182, and really Blink and Linkin Park are the headliners. Wu-Tang somehow is going before them, but which is odd because Wu-Tang is a lot more classic than the other bands. But you can still buy tickets. Like, people complain about stuff selling in New York City. If you live in the New York City area, shout out to you guys. You guys know when something goes on sale at the Garden, the new Coliseum, and even the other City Field shows like Zach Brown or the Dead End Company, you know, tickets just boom. People are scooping them up. Those bots are scooping up tickets. Allegedly, I know they're cracking down on those, but you literally cannot find, like, when Billy Joel puts out another show, boom, tickets are gone. When Fish does their runs at Madison Square Garden, which they're doing this year, boom, tickets are gone. When Radiohead does, they did shows in Madison Square Garden, boom, they're gone. But there's tons of tickets still for this Linkin Park Blink 182 combo. And if you did this 10 years ago, that show would have sold out. Um, and I actually like the direction Blink 182 is going, is they're sticking to their base. But Linkin Park, to get fans out to this Linkin Park show, or even to the rest of the tour, when you're talking down on the hybrid theories and the Meteors and those like first two albums that established the band, and saying, look, we're doing pop now, you're not gonna get people to come out. But again, Linkin Park, shout out to you guys. You guys have changed my life growing up. It's the start of my interest in music in the early 2000s. And I always will respect you, and maybe I'll get to one of your shows down the road. But right now, this One More Light tour, whatever it's being called, I'm probably not going to go. There's way too many other shows I want to see. If people want to go, hey, if people want to go, I hope you enjoy the show. And I really wish the band well. I'm glad they're at a point of where they are now, where they're establishing families, and they have bright days ahead of them, and they've really accomplished so much in the music world. But the way they're doing things, you're going to see a fan base not support certain shows as much, and not fill up the seats as much. Still probably going to be big crowds every night, but you're not going to see the day one fans, or even just guys like me who even went through past I have 6 albums in. I was impressed. This is really the one album I'm like, I don't even want to buy this. I streamed it and I was like, that's it. Everything else I've copped legally. So it is what it is. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about the new Linkin Park album? What do you think about the tour? Did this last project deter you from going to the tour, or did you like this new music? Have you maybe had some, if you're a fan that likes Linkin Park but likes pop and you're glad about this, definitely comment, like, subscribe below. But otherwise, that's it. Hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you guys next time.